name is Wendy Potomsky and I'm the managing partner and owner of Retake Furniture Rentals. Retake is once again a proud supporter of the Canadian Film Festival and is working to contribute to the Canadian film and TV industry by making it an easy and sustainable place to do business. Retake provides sustainable short and long-term furniture rental options to meet production schedules and product needs. Retake also understands the importance of set design and the dynamic nature of the film and TV industry, which is why we created a company to specifically support Canadian filmmakers. Retake can assist you in setting up your production office with sustainable alternatives to keep your team working safely as we all head back to work. We use sustainable approaches to minimize product going to landfill, which means any product supplied by Retake is helping to support the circular economy. Our in-house upholstery services can tailor our product to meet your set design requirements and match your color schemes. Contact us to discuss your office furniture needs. Our goal is to help you get back to work as safely and efficiently as possible. Stay safe, everyone, and enjoy the films and shorts at this year's Canadian Film Festival.
Celebrate Canadian filmmakers on Super Channel Fuse with an exclusive homegrown event.
I'm ready.
Go.
The Canadian Film Fest, presented by Super Channel, brings this year's festival into your home for a second year as a virtual experience.
Goodbye.
Every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night until April 18th. Enjoy the premieres of indie films and shorts from critically acclaimed and up-and-coming Canadian producers and directors.
And this is where the donkey starts talking.
Immerse yourself in this inspiring and spirited event, both on air and online, with live Facebook Q&A sessions that follow the films.
Makes sense. Start it.
Experience the Canadian Film Fest, proudly presented by Super Channel.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Q&A portion of week 3 of the Canadian Film Fest. I'm Bern Euler, the Executive Director of the Film Fest. Over there on my screen is Richard. Richard, say hi.
Hi there. I'm Richard Pierre, one of the programmers.
Well, we had an amazing lineup of shorts that just played, as per usual, because Canadians are good at everything. And first, we're going to talk to the crew from our first movie, With Feeling. Guys, welcome. Jillian, Brendan, you want to introduce yourselves and your roles in With Feeling?
Sure. So my name is Jillian McKercher, and I'm the writer and director of the short With Feeling.
I'm Brendan Welton. I'm the producer of With Feeling.
Welcome. Welcome. It's an honor having your movie with us this year. I loved it. I loved that it was a movie about two estranged people who still knew that there was a connection because both of them just adored their daughter, and it was a really sweet message. I like that. I like positivity.
Yeah.
And is that something? Is that the main theme that you wanted to explore, Jillian? Like even right from the script stage when you're just starting with that brand new idea?
I was actually really the start of the film, like the idea was actually really inspired by two movies or two things at the time. I had actually just gotten married when I was thinking about the idea, and I really liked Scenes from a Marriage. But I was actually really interested by the idea of an intermission. So like, what does it mean for people who have moved on from something? Like in real life, it's just not going to work out, but you get an intermission with someone, kind of like a timeout, where you can maybe revisit some feelings that you can't really indulge or confront in everyday life. So yeah, that's what was the motivation for this. So I was thinking, like, even when people get divorced, like there's a reason that the term like old flame carries so much weight with people. And so I was thinking, like, what happens if you could talk to someone again? And that's what started the whole writing process, and thinking about what you could say and what would bring you together, and even being proud of your daughter or the past that you've had shared together. Like, it's not all bad. Like even in Wedding Crashers, They talk about that. In Wedding Crashers, they're like at the very opening, they're like, it wasn't all bad. Like the wedding was okay.
But no, that's a perfect way to look at it. It wasn't all bad. It's so easy to dwell on the negative for past relationships, especially. So that's one of my favorite things about this movie. Is that how do you just you take the script, or you wrote the script and then approach Brendan with it, or was this a set up collaboration already?
Well, we were both in the Canadian Film Center film program at the time. And we kind of did a speed dating thing with everyone. And me and Jillian just really hit it off. We bonded over, we both really like erotic thrillers and are sad that it's a genre that's kind of fell by the wayside. Hollywood is increasingly puritanical. And so, yeah, we started talking about like sex in cinema, and we just really hit it off. Both big fans of Adrian Lyne as well. And yeah, we just, it was one of those things where in the first meeting, we just kind of started bouncing ideas off each other right away. And it seemed, from that point on, it seemed pretty like a match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm. I think what was good about with the partnership between Brendan and I is that we both didn't judge these characters. I think some people who I spoke to, it can be pretty, kind of edgy for them. By edgy, I mean like ultimately, like the father character is cheating on his current partner with his ex-wife, which, some people take that pretty seriously, and that just like turns them off right away from what's going on here. But I think Brendan was interested in like exploring that nuance and how these situations might arise, and secrets and truth. So yeah, it was a lot of fun working together.
I think the film really works well, and I think part of it is the casting. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that sort of, I think, helps bridge that gap, maybe in terms of, what he's doing with his ex-wife?
Yeah, sure. So I feel really lucky with the cast. We didn't have a lot of time to shoot, and even the takes were limited just given the circumstances of production. But I think that the actors brought a lot of tenderness. I think that's actually something which is missing from cinema today. Everything, and like, don't get me wrong, I love like very like impactful, like bold cinematic choices and acting, but I think that we're losing tenderness and intimacy in films, which doesn't just need to be about like pleasurable sex, although that can be part of it. I think it's about connection. So I think with this cast, like they really were able to connect on screen. So Wayne and Stephanie, the leads, were like really, really good at bringing that and just having a moment together. And then for the family dynamics, I think that they were able to like let their guard down and like actually try to have nuance in what it might mean to be a family, or like not being so stoked on like who your daughter's like decided to spend the rest of her life with. So yeah, I think that's what made this film work, was having actors who could facilitate the intimacy that I was interested in.
Yeah, no, I was really impressed when it was what we were watching at like early cuts, and just how much the cast brought their own sort of nuances to the film. Like, I find it very funny every time I rewatch it that the mom never looks at the boyfriend. Is like, she always talks around him. She's always like sort of avoiding him in the room, and I think there's just so much that says for the characters that was just sort of brought to life on the day.
Yeah, I picked up on that as well. And at first I thought you guys were going to go somewhere with that. And then when you didn't, it actually made it more real for me. Because then it was, she's not 100% into that dude, but respects her daughter enough that that's her choice, and it's going to work out for the best. And she's all in it for her daughter. I loved it. Just great. And I guess I'm gonna end off the Q&A just by thanking you guys very much for making a wonderful movie and bringing it to the CFF this year. We're really hoping to see more from you guys. So if you ever have anything in the future, please think of us, because we'd love to show you off.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, got a busy year ahead of me. So looking forward to seeing you next year.
Good. I love it. All right. So stick around, guys. We'll be right back. And for the audience out there, one sec while we bring in our next casting crew. Zoom wave.
Thank you very much.
And we're back. We're back with Human, the director, and writer of The Room. Human, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe anything else about the movie you'd like the audience to know about?
Well, first of all, it was a joint work with Sami Mermer, both in writing, in the writing and directing the film, and also basically we did the editing ourselves. He couldn't be here today, so he apologizes for that. Well, my day job, I'm a scientist, but my real life is as a poet and a filmmaker. So this is, I did mostly underground films, which I didn't publish that much, but my co-worker, my friend, who did the film with me, he's a documentary filmmaker. So he's been working quite a lot, in fact, in Turkey often with immigrants, and people who lost their homes, are trying to get elsewhere and their reality. And well, for me, as an immigrant, but I came here as a child, so I'm not a real immigrant in the sense. Well, I grew up here, so I'm mostly transformed, but nevertheless, I have deep memories, of my uncles, my grandfather, my grandfathers, and basically, I came from Iran, and Sami, he comes from Turkey. He's Kurdish. He grew up in a village, So we still have, both of us, deeply, the flavors and the poetry, I would say, of our countries, and I know that, in Iran, there's a deep culture of poetry, in the tough situations of life, we basically think in poems, and sometimes poems, that come, from 1,000 years ago, and still we gather together and we recite them and we think about them. And, even young people, they have poetry challenges it together, and, and so on. So it's part of my background, and it's still very important for me. And basically, when I met with Sami, we had a kind of I would say dissatisfaction, with immigrants in the films. In the recent years, we've just seen lots of films about or with for immigrants, and which I think it's a great progress, and it's very interesting. However, often when I watch these films, I see that, I recognize the situations, but the way people, they react there is not us, I would say often, they're sad, it's dramatic, it's heavy, it's often it's a social, it's from a sociological point of view. Mm-hmm. But it's the way we feel it, by the way I feel it, is often different. We laugh, we have dreams, so. And then, instead of, just, sorry.
No, so I was just gonna, because on the poetry of it, it wasn't even, there was some dialogue there that I thought was just beautiful. It was dreamlike. It was gorgeous. But then also your shot selection and the way you composed certain shots, and that you went from color or black and white, sorry, and then you had a little bit of splash of color at the end to accentuate the story. And that's actually, Donna from Facebook is actually asking, was that always a plan for you to go from black and white to color, or was that something you decided in the edit suite?
It was planned from the beginning, it was planned from the beginning that it would be black and white. And just that this small shot, in fact, it's the only flashback. It's a kind of a flashback. This flashback had to be in color because, his dreams are, in this field, in the flower fields, had to be in color, whereas his death, that what he sees, basically, he comes here in a new country. And, when you live that the first time, basically, you don't perceive as much as you want. Everything seems the same. People look like the same. The buildings look like the same. So basically, you don't see the colors that much. It takes a while before you can start to distinguish between the subtleties. So that was a plan from the beginning.
Whoa, you do think in poetry. That's really cool.
That's what we tried. We tried to go. And that's a part of a program that I have, that we have. Is that. I think the immigrants has, basically they could enrich, with a new vocabulary, and if we can try to find the kind of internal language, that we have inside us, maybe it's more than a story. Maybe we can have a view, a point of view over life here. But from a different vocabulary.
Yeah, and that actually spoke, because both of my parents are immigrants from two totally different countries, okay. And not from anywhere near where you guys are from, but it's still so many of those themes I understood because I know that my parents went through them, and I'm one of those kids that had it easy compared to what they had to go through, especially my dad having lived through a war. So yeah, it's really cool, the immigrant stories like that. Yes. That there's no matter where you're from,
yes,
so many of us can understand it or at least relate to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Richard, did you mention that you had a question? So I know I'm hogging the floor.
One quick one. I was wondering how long it actually took you to put the film together, because I mean, it's very meticulously created. So I'm just wondering, like, from writing to actual completion, how long did that process take?
Well, it took too long. It took, especially that we tried to do it, to write it together, and we're both very strong personalities. So basically, we fought over each word, each window, everything that's there. But it was a great fight, It was like digging, instead of trying to cover lots of, room, we were always digging, in the same spot, as much as we could. So it took more than a year, in fact.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm glad you guys took your time. It's a beautiful movie. Thank you so much for being part of this year's lineup. The lineup is only strengthened by movies like that. So I sincerely thank you on behalf of the CFF, and stick around while we get on to the next crew here, but for everybody out there, hold on, we'll be right back with the next cast and crew of the next movie. So thank you very much, Human.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
And we're back. We're back with Carolyn from the movie Clothing. So welcome to the CFF, Carolyn.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks for making a beautiful movie. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It's very distinctive, the style. Was that your idea from the beginning to use this style of animation?
Yeah, I started really by wanting to use textile as the kind of centerpiece of the film visually. And later I thought, at first I wanted to do cutouts, but then I learned the rotoscopic technique, so drawing on top of a video. And I loved the simplicity of it with the richness of the textiles. So that's kind of how it came.
So why clothing? What does clothing say to you personally that you had this idea for a movie in you?
Yeah, I think I'm really interested about the everyday life. And since I wanted to talk about, to use textile as a visual narrative, I just wrote a story about clothing. And what I I think it's interesting what you asked me, like what it tells to me. I guess what it tells to me at that time is pretty much that movie. But I'm also interested to have conversation because everybody has an opinion about clothes. You know, everybody's kind of wearing them, and while making the film and even after, like now, what I enjoy a lot is just starting the conversation and hearing what other people's relationship with their clothes are. So
Yeah, because I even remember watching, like, this one might sound funny, but The Devil Wears Prada. I watched that movie, and I forget exactly what Meryl Streep said in that, but she kind of put fashion and clothing into one sentence about what it meant, and it blew me away. I just have a terrible memory. I can't remember the exact line, but this movie, your movie, was along that same lines. Is look how important and entwined, or like how much clothing is part of our lineup. It's so easy to take it for granted. So is that what you're also like thinking about when even you're writing the movie, writing the script?
When I was writing the script, I was thinking a lot about going from my 20s to my 30s and what it meant to me, and kind of letting go some things, kind of moving on. And I think that's the thing that kind of I had in mind when I was writing it. And I think also I just wanted to address very like subtly a lot of ideas or things I was thinking about, like the relationship with the body, and also the care with clothing, and friendship and sport and everything like that's kind of going on in life, and that I think I like to think about. So I that's kind of what happened, what I wanted to do.
So Carolyn, do you want to talk about like the sort of the challenges of making this film, like in terms of like maybe even like trying to fund the concept? Because again, it on paper, it might not sound like this big idea, but I think you get a lot out of this seemingly simple concept.
Mm-hmm. It was a huge learning curve for me. Like I've never done this kind of animation. I'm really an autodidact animator, so funding, like I had help to write a grant, and I got a really good grant from Canada Council and Quebec Art Council. And I guess like I just found the right people to create a team, and it was also my first time directing a team. So that like basically supported me so much during the film. What can I say? Yeah, it's hard to just like push through with it's nice to have funding, but it's also never quite what it's really worth, like as a director and screenwriter and producer and everything, so I'm really proud of it, and I'm really proud, like I also wanted to give the team really good work condition, because in the arts it's not always thought about, it's an afterthought usually. So these things were on my mind, and just making decisions a lot. At some point you just don't know anymore, but I'm really proud of the film and the process as well. So it's just like a very, very good experience for me.
That's awesome. And what's the response been in terms of like feedback from like audiences?
It was lucky in a way that my film was on online in like February 2020, and when the pandemic hit, like it was accessible like throughout Canada, and like everybody was kind of at home and kind of available to watch this kind of content. So it got shared a lot, and I had some very touching messages from like my parents, friends, or from people that really are off circuit, not in the art world or the cinema world, and that they really connected to the film and they wanted to tell me about it, and that's really heartwarming. Yeah. Also, I was nominated for Quebec Cinema Award. So this is
Oh,
also
right.
a huge recognition for like from the milieu, like the colleagues. So I couldn't be happier. It's great.
Hey,
That's
congrats.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's great news. Great news. Well, listen, to end things off here with you, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for making such a beautiful looking and enthralling story. We look forward to whatever you have in the future, so please think of us. Okay, stick around while we say goodbye, but everybody out there, we'll be right back with our next cast and crew of Wish. Hi, Carolyn. And we're back. We're back with the cast and crew of Wish. And Ingrid, who's actually helped the festival a lot in the past by being part of one of our director's master classes, one of my absolute favorite ones we've ever done in the history of the CFF. Ingrid, it's good to have you back and have you here as a filmmaker this time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on Zoom.
I know, right? Stupid COVID. I much rather would be doing this in person, obviously, but hey, it is what it is. And we have Haley and Laska here too, don't we? Yeah. Look at, how do you not just pinch those cheeks all day long?
Basically, that's what I do.
And nobody's blaming you.
I think Laska's she's seen Wish a few times, but outside of, seeing Wish, I think she's only seen 3 or 4 other movies, right, Hal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
which is impressive considering how much time we've spent inside, but yeah, still only a few.
So can I ask you this? So Ingrid, I'm watching this, and as a dad myself, I know, especially when kids are that age. And sorry, Haley, was she actually 1 year old when they were filming? When you were filming?
She was just about to turn 1.
Okay, but you got. I mean, how much did you have to be there, Ingrid, with the camera in this family's faces and like getting those shots that really worked so well in this movie? But I was thinking you must have been there for a couple of days, kind of thing, at the very least.
Yeah, well, we were bubbled together, and we're on Big Bay Point, just outside of Toronto. We've been here for a year in Alcona, and we shot over 3 days. So we shot a few mornings. The film opens at night with Hallie nursing Laska. So, I mean, that's just a moment. We came into the room with the camera. I was always really impressed. Sometimes when you see little kids on screen, they're always looking up because they're following the boom. But Laska is so, I think, already familiar with things kind of up and around her and cameras on her that she never once looked up at the boom. So we shot 3 days, very tight shoot, and we got everything we needed.
And do you want to just jump in there and talk about like pandemic filming challenges in general?
Yeah, well, we sort of, Wish was part of a larger project called 19, which is 9 female filmmakers isolating in different parts of the world, making kind of 9 tracks on an album or 9 chapters of a film. And Wish is our chapter in 19, it's called Birth. But really the idea was that we were making films with 0 budgets, using cameras we had available to us, with our cast being family members, crew being like 1 or 2 people, again, people we were isolating with. So it was kind of innovating a story within these very restrictive times of the pandemic, and trying to make something that was going to resonate and sort of be a time capsule, but at the same time be timeless.
That, you know what, it's so cool that you mentioned that, because I remember last year at at this time when people told me, oh yeah, next year you're not going to have any films submitted probably. I'm like, no, nothing's stopping these filmmakers. They will find a way. And that's, wow. So this is, so you obviously did, and this you're saying is part of the feature. When can we expect to see the feature? What are the plans for getting that out and into the public's, well, I was going to say into the theaters, but into public's living rooms, I guess.
Yeah, we had a world premiere of the feature at the Female Eye Film Festival just at the very end of March, and now we're looking at a US premiere, European premiere is all kind of coming down the pipe this spring. But definitely in Canada, we're going to make sure 1/9 gets out there, and this is our world premiere for Wish, so it's pretty exciting to have this platform right now.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that filmmakers just, what, world pandemic, I'm not putting my camera down.
No, and it's amazing that Hallie, you know, Hallie and Laska were so game, because, you know, Laska's about to turn 2, and we're still in this pandemic now, 3rd wave. And once again, this birthday milestone is not going to be the way any one of us imagined. So, you know, like being with Hallie and being with her through this year as a young mom with a little toddler who's never had a play date with another little person. So it's been pretty intense. I think we thought Laska's 2nd birthday was going to be a little bit different, but here we are again.
Yeah, Hallie, how was that then? You're a new mom, and there's a camera in front, right in your face for a few days. How challenging is that, filming while literally being a mom?
Yeah, I do remember being a little tired, but that's nothing to do with the filmmaking process. That's just new parenthood. But I've actually acted in some of my mom's films before, 2 for features, Modra and I'm a Good Person, I'm a Bad Person. So it wasn't too foreign for me. And then I kind of just figured once Laska was in the picture and she was so incredibly photogenic, it was just a matter of time before she'd make her debut. And so yeah, it was really nice to be on screen with her, and it was also nice not to have to pretend to be anything other than what I really was at that time, what I really am, which was a little bit overwhelmed new parent.
And we have a question from Donna from Facebook. What are some of the challenges shooting the bathtub scene with an active baby?
Yeah, I mean, Laska likes the water. I wouldn't say she loves the water yet, but she likes the water. We had to repeat, although the film has a very documentary style. Again, it was scripted and the shots were planned and nothing was just shot once. So it was more like putting her in the water, and then she'd get really excited, and we would take her out of the water, and then we had to put her back in the water. And I think the bathtub scene took maybe 20 minutes. And by the end, I could feel her like lips turning blue and getting a little bit shivery. And we're like, okay, that's it. Yeah. So we'd sometimes get 2 or 3 takes in, and then we'd want to move on to something else. But she was such a trooper. I think the only time she was getting very fed up, and for everyone who's seen Wish, you'll probably guess the moment, was when the birthday muffin with the single candle was coming into the frame. And then we had to do it again, and it would disappear, and then it would come back. And by the time that she could actually get her hands on that muffin, nothing was going to stop her, take that muffin out of the shot again. And it was her first muffin ever. So Hallie and I were looking at her like, wow, she really likes muffins. And her request for her 2nd year birthday cake is what, Hallie?
Muffins.
Muffins.
Girl.
Well, I mean,
we set her up.
Well, muffins are pretty awesome, especially when you're kids. So, I mean, you know, Laska's just a smart kid, I guess. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys both for being here, for bringing this gorgeous movie to the CFF. It's an absolute honor having you as part of our lineup. Stick around until the curtain is drawn, but everybody out there, stick around. We're going to bring in our next cast and crew. So Zoom wave.
Thank you very much.
back. We're back with Rodrigo from of Memory and Debris. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting the film. It's a pleasure to have the Canadian premiere at Canadian Film Fest, really.
Awesome. Honors all ours. And this is another movie that we showed today with, and we wanted to put this in, or I'm not gonna say we, because this is my programming team who did a bang up job this year, but they really wanted to put a few movies in that had a running theme of immigrants and, you know, new to Canada and memories of back home and all that. So which, I mean, even me as the child of immigrants, this really speaks to me. Plus half of my family's Ecuadorian, so it's always nice to, you know, see some fellow Latinos up there on the screen, right? So yeah, so is this because you're homesick?
Definitely. I mean, me and my business partner, Jorge Thielen, who founded with me La Faena, which is a company that we have here and in Caracas, in Venezuela, we always say that we make films because we want to come back home. It's an excuse to get on a plane, go back and look at our stories. You know, he left when I was 15, but I left Venezuela when I was 21, 10 years ago. So, you know, my identity, my roots are there and my family is still there. So it was really a privilege to be able to be there and film them and then bring the story back. And a few years later, Alabo, which is my wife's grandfather, came to visit here, and I did those last shots of the Canadian side of the film. So
yeah, I noticed that was really cool because my abuelo only came to visit once. He managed to get here, and it was like watching in your movie, watching him sit at the end of the driveway on the lawn chair. Like nobody does that here, right? And I remember my abuelo doing those sort of the same things. You're just like, sure, do whatever you want.
That's interesting, right? Because here in Venezuela, people right now, because of the high insecurity rates, you know, with crime, people have stopped sharing outside. So actually, in my film, you feel how enclosed they are in their homes and where they work. And showing now in Canada, to have him there sitting at the end of the driveway is a bit of freedom. So that paradox is there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a nice touch. I think we have something, Richard. Don't we have a question?
Yeah, we do have a question from Facebook from Alejandro. It is, how did it feel to film your grandmother's last days?
Well, that actually I take as a blessing. Just first, the fact that we were born when cinema exists, because that way we can immortalize our people in a visual way and in a profound way too, not only with your memory, right? So I feel it's a blessing, and it was hard because she was, you know, in her last days with Alzheimer's that affected the whole family for years, but we had a great time together, and I have a lot of footage of her singing songs to the camera, which is something that, you know, she didn't do before having Alzheimer's. So interesting avenues, and feeling blessed to have a camera there.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about like making a film that really is so like deeply personal, and like how, I guess, you might even perceive like any critiques of the film as almost personally because of that?
Yeah, it took years for me actually this is my first short film as a director, because I normally work as a producer and screenwriter and director of photography in feature films, but you know, it took me a lot of time because I was afraid to go back to the footage and to shape it. You know, it's kind of shaping your memories could feel toxic sometimes. It's just, well, just let them be. But we find that is, I don't know, it's interesting. It's great to tap into those deep feelings. So, I mean, it's a process, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I think what you said there, especially in light of having, you know, video of let's say your grandparents, like before your grandmother died, but they're together, and there's so much love in that one shot. The way your grandfather is so gentle with her, and just, the Alzheimer's is just one of those things that they've had to deal with, and he just takes it in stride, and you have that beautiful memory now forever. So yeah, I think that is a blessing. You're absolutely right on that. Oh, I'm going to get emotional now. My Ecuadorian side is going to make me want to tear up.
No, but really, thank you.
Yeah, and how would your family respond to the film?
They've always been very supportive, and of course very emotional too, because that touches them even more deeply, because they're watching their own fathers and in the screen. So yeah, a lot of crying after it ends. But yeah, that's what cinema does, and that's why we're in love with it.
Wow, that's
Were there any challenges for you when you were making the film, like in terms of any like production issues?
Well, I was filming that right when we were doing a recce for another film that we were doing down there. So yeah, there were some security issues in the center of the capital. It's a bit dangerous to just walk around with the camera. So we had to be accompanied by a security person. But at the end, everything went very smoothly. I can't complain. Yeah.
It's got to be different, right? Like being you, and tell me if this is something you've experienced, but you grew up in Venezuela, then you come to Canada. Sorry, you said when you were 21?
Yeah.
Right, in 21, and then it's so much different here in terms of what you're just saying, like in terms of safety, and then going back, it's a different way of thinking. Because I know when I was in Ecuador, I tried to explain to my cousins, you guys live in fear all the time, and I'm just not used to that. They're like, no, you're not. And I said, no, if you come to my house, you knock on the door and I let you in. They're like, what? Because there's an intercom outside a heavily gated thing. I said, sometimes if I'm having a backyard barbecue or whatever, I leave the front door open so to just walk in, and they wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't believe me.
Yeah,
So
that's something that
right?
I appreciated a lot. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, that's something I appreciated a lot when I came here. But every time I go back, I mean, it's always different every year that you go back to Venezuela, especially because everything changes so fast, politically too, that every time I go back, I have to kind of reset and talk to my friends that stayed there, my family, to get a briefing of what's going on now. And then, yeah, even with currency, but well, that's, I don't want to get into specifics of how difficult, but
in terms of production, that you had to walk around with a security detail, just camera. I mean,
it's tough.
But listen, you know what? You provided us with a really beautiful snapshot of both here and back home for you in Venezuela, which is something we love giving up our platform to show. So we're glad you're here making awesome movies. Please continue to do so.
Thank you so much, guys. Really, I appreciate it. Thank you, Canadian Film Fest too.
Thanks. Okay, stick around. And our audience out there, we're going to be right back with the cast and crew of the Flexed Arm Hang. So till that, give us a few seconds. Ciao. And we are back. We're back with the cast and crew of the Flexed Arm Hang. Guys, welcome. Why don't you all introduce yourselves? Finley, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Finley Brown, and I'm the writer, director, producer of the Flexed Arm Hang.
Next, Andrew.
Oh, I'm next. Okay. I'm Andrew Forbes. I was the cinematographer on the show.
And I'm Ethan Biller-Dooley. I was the editor on the Flex Time.
Cool. I didn't mean to put you last, Ethan. I know editors are the most important people, and
yeah,
that's okay.
Past editor.
I can forgive you.
Okay, so I wanted to start off by publicly chastising you guys for making me relive some terrible memories of my childhood. I remember the flex arm hang and the shuttle with the, what was it, the shuttle one where you go back and forth is the ones I hated the most.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys want to explain why you're so mean?
Yeah, I've heard that reaction a lot, and I know Andrew and Ethan have as well, that this is a really uniquely Canadian story that a lot of people can relate to, sometimes traumatically from their past, of going through these trials of fire, such as the flexed arm hang, with the very concrete bronze, silver, gold excellence awards afterwards that really just forced you to push yourself to places you didn't want to go.
Yeah, I had a lot of participation badges myself, but
so did I. Yeah.
Right. Right. So funny. I mean, and you know what? Even let's say even if you didn't go through this yourself, because maybe you're not as old as me or whatever, it's still, you guys really hit the angst of being awkward at that age when you just started going through puberty, and you can't do anything as well as the next person, and that he did get the silver, the 64 seconds. I was really cheering for him. So, and that specific question I was wondering right as soon as I saw that is, were you deciding on whether or not he was going to hit 62 seconds or 64? Was that ever part of it?
Yeah, so for me, I thought a big part of this was filmed kind of in the summer lull of COVID, in between the first and second wave, obviously safely. And but I thought in a time like right now, I really wanted to do a positive story, something that, yeah, it might bring back some traumatic memories, but at the end of the day, it is an uplifting story. It is a positive one. I thought people could really enjoy that at a time like this. And that's basically why I decided to have him get the story. Get the silver medal at the end. It also matches up with the original true story, which is a short story by a guy named Adriano Magnifico, which was published in the Winnipeg Free Press a few years ago, that this is adapted from. So he did actually get it. And while I considered changing the story, I thought the uplifting message is really something that could resonate with people right now.
Very cool. Very cool.
And do you want to talk about like making a film in the middle of a pandemic, working with kids? And I believe, Finley, this is your first film?
It is, yeah, for everything. This is my first and thus far only film, which is why it was so important for me to get someone like Andrew, by the way.
Oh,
deserves a ton of credit, because it cannot be understated how little I knew what I was doing. And none of this would have been possible without his guidance and being there on set and helping me out. So I'm super glad I got to have him as someone on set and someone to help me out. But yeah, it is my first film, and it was in that lull where there were very few cases, but we made sure, the kids were distanced as much as they could be. There was hand sanitizer, there was masks worn as much as possible, but it was still a challenge, and we had to, working with kids, making a comedy already is challenging enough. And with COVID and everything, we gave them all pre-packaged little lunches with their own juice box and stuff that we would separate to be as safe as possible. But this was when things were really at their lull, so we didn't really anticipate it getting to nearly as bad as it is now. But it was still a huge challenge, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I've done
do we want to talk a little bit more with Andrew Forbes, who I personally know and am glad to see.
Haven't seen in years. It's so good to see you.
Glad to see you're still making some movies happen.
Thanks. Yeah.
Tell us about working with this first-time filmmaker and this traumatic short film.
Oh, you wouldn't know that it was the first time, that it was the first project, because when I was approached for the project, Finley had the script had already gone through a couple drafts. So it was already at a place that it felt like it was shootable. It was certainly shootable, and storyboards had already been put together Locations had already been scouted. Casting was already underway. Like it was, it was actually really, it didn't feel like a first project at all. And I mean, certainly going back to my student days, trying to scramble something together and feeling like you sort of barely holding on kind of thing. It felt like it was really, really, it was a lovely experience. And I think the one surprise, I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school, Finley, on this one, but the one surprise was that I was terrified of having to have this kid holding on bar, like actually going through this, because obviously we're going to shoot this over the course of a day. So there's going to be, a good maybe, 20, 30 takes where this kid's going to have to hang on the bar and he's not going to last. And we made it through the first take, the whole script in the first take, and kind of went, oh, I guess, and he was kind of holding on. It was no big deal. And like, oh, maybe we can actually make this happen. This isn't going to be nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. But but then again, it seemed like, I don't know, we were all rushing. We were in such a panic to get through it for his sake more than for anybody else's.
He was a superstar. Braden Ross.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was just wonderful, So yeah, no, it was great. Honestly, it was a real treat, and it was nice because it was such a quiet summer. It was really lovely to just to be able to dive back in and do And
one thing I loved about this too, Andrew, is that I didn't notice the cinematography until a little bit in, because I was in there and it looked like what I remember as a little kid. It looked like, so I kind of took it for granted, and then I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is so beautifully shot.
Oh,
so how did you approach making sure it looked like? Sorry, was it 1978? Is that what you said it was?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how did you say, okay, I want this to look like 1978 without going, to extremes? Just subtly, boom, there it is, and the audience is in.
I mean, we had sort of made Finley. I don't know. Like we had talked about influences and colors, and I think certainly there was a lot of natural. I mean, we had been going through with without diving into the tech, the nerd tech stuff too much, but we'd certainly talked about it kind of being like natural.
By the way, the nerd tech stuff is fine here. We have a lot of emerging filmmakers who.
Oh, wonderful! Oh, rad. Okay, thanks. Okay,
crazy,
that's great. Okay. Well, in that case, then, no, they had actually the location we had been working, or we had scouted, had actually just installed a whole bunch of LED, like they'd just gone LED. So we had just gotten rid of all of their sodium vapor lamps that they had been using, which was great because it gave us a really easy bed to work with at that point. Like our base exposure was just there. And ultimately what it became were just kind of these two side lights to kind of give us a little bit more oomph on one side, just to help render a little bit. And there was a whole pile of additional gear that we had built with the anticipation of having to do a lot more than we did, but we were able to make it all work. So I'm live right now. Sorry, my daughter just popped in. She's just getting out of the shower, and sorry, kiddo.
That's all good.
This is Zoom. This is real life.
This is my daughter.
Welcome to a pandemic.
Yes, this is Elsie.
I'm surprised my daughter hasn't crashed the meeting yet. Too. My wife's upstairs. No, it's all good. All good. So then, Ethan, then with all of that having been said, then when it gets to you, because I, as an editor myself, back in the day, I've worked on stuff where I haven't had to do much except assemble it, and I've also had to do stuff where I've had to rewrite the script in my, on my Adobe Premiere or Avid or whatever I happen to be using. So considering like every indie movie is pretty difficult, how did you find then working with the footage that they end up giving to you?
Well, Finley and Andrew did a really good job of getting a lot of coverage, and there were multiple takes of everything and lots of coverage, and the vast majority were really good, like beat wise and performance wise, with the exception of a handful of kids, but that's to be expected. But yeah, because the kids would get really fidgety sometimes, it became continuity became a pretty big problem. Not so, I mean, we were able to solve it, but we did have to go through many iterations of okay, we'll we'll try this angle where his arm's here, and then we'll see if it matches kind of okay with the arm here. And then if we do it in this certain way, then nobody will notice. And I think we ended up finding a pattern where nobody did notice. So I think we did. Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm quite happy with it. Yeah.
Ethan put in so much time. He was really incredible working on this and just doing stuff that I would never have thought of with some of the footage. And I foolishly had the idea early on that I could edit it myself. And within about 5 minutes of working with Ethan, that was exposed for the completely idiotic idea that it was. And without him on the project, it would have been impossible to do. 100%. So it was amazing to have him.
Yeah.
Right. Ethan, am I right? Everybody thinks editing is so easy and it's not. But then that goes for any part of filmmaking, whether it's directing or writing or the cinematography or acting or producing, whatever. Everybody thinks it's easy. You know why though? It's because you guys make it look easy. That film was so much fun. I thoroughly enjoyed the shit out of that movie, even though
thank you.
Dark places. So thank you very much for being part of the CFF this year, guys. That was such a great Canadian story that I love when we're able to program. So thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Cheers.
Our honor. That's going to wrap it up for this portion of the CFF Q&A, our last shorts program. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. We do have another screening tonight, so come by for a closing night movie tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Until then, thanks everybody. Zoom wave.